Welcome to the Home Services Home Show, where you'll learn everything you need to,
And a whole lot you don't.
more that you don't than you do. But
Every once in a while we get lucky.
our goal is, if every person that listens could take away a couple things, help them out, so maybe they don't end up having a waterfall in
Water in
all
their
of their
house.
windows and doors like you did last night.
Right. That was a lot of fun.
The roofer contractor, rain pouring through. I'm sorry, I'm smiling. It's not funny.
Thanks, Dick.
It's not funny. I get it, but that's what we want to talk about today.
Well, and here's you're exactly right because rain and water are a deadly combination.
Mhm. Somebody said this to me one time. Like, water's so powerful. It can rot houses. It can flood rivers and lakes. Water's so powerful. It puts out fire.
And it can also wreck your marriage.
And what?
It can also wreck your marriage.
Water?
Put water in your house. You ever seen people distraught? Because I mean, we've seen it. All the houses we've been to, roofs that weren't done maybe properly by somebody else, or siding, or windows, like it is a stressful time for people when they have water in their house. It's a scary,
Yeah.
miserable time.
And this comment right here is for all the people out there who are thinking about doing siding and or are siders. Siders need to start looking at siding like roofers. Or looking at water
Correct.
like roofers look at water, and they don't. But when water comes, like we had yesterday, they had to have been 60-mile-an-hour winds sustained with heavy rain, and your house got hit with water in places that it never had been before.
Correct.
And you had water coming in.
Right.
That is a siding flashing issue.
100%.
The problem is, where's it coming from?
Right. Wherever it comes in is not the problem.
New.
We
Takes the path of least resistance. The path of least resistance was the gap between your drywall and your windows and doors.
correct. Where's it coming from? I don't know.
No clue.
Not
So there's there's probably a lot of people that had that exact same thing happen
correct.
yesterday.
When you have rain and wind like that, it's going to cause problems. And I would say this: wind is probably the silent killer for homes, roofing and siding and windows that people don't think about.
What do you think about getting a new roof from insurance?
Hail.
Hail, hail. I worked with a roofer out of the Atlanta area. It's been 4 or 5 years, but I remember talking to him, and he only did storm restoration work. That's all he did. And I said something about hail, and he's like, "Oh no, I don't touch hail." I said, "What? What do you do?" Wind,
Mm-hmm.
wind only. And he said the reason is because there's nobody out knocking doors for wind damage
No.
because they don't know how to deal with
Oh, I
it.
do.
He was an expert at it, and he would literally go into neighborhoods that had a or not a hailstorm, a windstorm within the past year or two, and all the homes he knew were a exact same age, exact same shingles, which he knew they didn't make anymore.
Right.
So he would target those areas so he knew he could get those roofs replaced. And really they did need to be replaced. Some of them were missing shingles, big zipper lifts on them,
Mhm.
but they didn't even know
Right.
because unless there's hail, nobody thinks about it.
Well, and here's the scary part. Think about how the insurance game has changed today versus even the last couple of years. A wind damage claim is gonna be almost impossible for a homeowner. It's gonna be like pulling their hair out. It's gonna be a miserable experience. But the problem is the winds we saw in Madison, Fond du Lac, Green Bay,
All the
that
way
that whole
across. All the way
corridor,
across.
up Milwaukee. I mean, they saw the huge winds too. Like there are houses that are damaged, and people don't know it.
Mm-hmm.
No, we're not an insurance restoration company. That's not who we are. We're retail. Let's do it right the first time. Take care of all the details, so you don't have to test the warranty. You don't ever have to test, that part of your roof. Like we do a roof, so you never have to worry about your warranty.
Right.
I don't have to even think about it. But a lot of roofers don't do it that way.
Right.
And now with this wind that came through, there's a lot of houses gonna be ticking time bombs. And for me, it makes me feel bad for people because
Oh, it's gonna suck.
it's not gonna. You might not see it today, you might not see it tomorrow, but once those shingles are broken, that seal's broken, they're never gonna seal down like
Not
they
gonna
did.
well, it's not gonna seal down again, period.
And then what happens? You get some dirt, you get some debris, you get some all that dust on that thing, and now that shingle can sit there and flap. And until the shingle gets ripped off, you see, oh my gosh, I'm missing part of my roof. That's the most obvious answer. Well, that's not gonna lead
Most
to the
people
leaks.
don't even look up, though.
Correct.
You don't think
Most people
about your
can't see the
You
roof.
don't even look up at the roof, There's nothing better for me than the hailstorms that we had go through southern Wisconsin, and, I mean, some roofers would be upset about this, but we try to sell Class 4 impact rated shingles, and we had numerous roofs got done. We go back and check them, no damage.
Right.
Every roof around them getting replaced, they have no damage, and, you know, in years past, some people were like, "Well, I want hail damage."
Right.
You don't want hail damage anymore.
Not the way the game's changed.
The insurance company, you're gonna pay a lot out of pocket for your deductible. And again, we've talked about this before, the non-recoverable depreciation. We've talked about that, and I'll explain it real quick. You get a check up front, just in case you don't fix it. That's your money. You only get the rest of it after you do the job.
Right.
Well, now they're getting rid of that.
Right.
So homeowners are getting stuck paying five, six, seven, 10, $12,000 out of pocket, and they weren't expecting it.
Right.
Now you put a class 4 on, there's a lot less likelihood. Now, we're not saying that they can't ever be damaged, but I mean, they had some really big hail go through and it didn't damage those
Well,
roofs.
our friends up in the Twin Cities, the Linnuses, where we came
Yeah.
from, they just had a storm that hit in Richmond, River Falls, Baldwin, like, they got crushed. And, we're seeing from the managers there, like, the people that had the Armor Shield shingles particularly,
Yeah.
they're just not seeing the damage that a normal roof is having.
Right.
And that's we talk shingles, we believe, you and I believe in the Armor Shield shingle. It's an SBS shingle that was particularly made for that kind of impact. And there's a lot of manufacturers even across the shingle industry that are trying to say, well, no, this shingle's a class 4 too. Well, hold on. If it never wasn't ever built for class 4 to begin with, how does all of a sudden just become a class 4, right? So that scares me because a class 4 is not all class 4s are the same. So when we put a shingle on,
Somehow passed the test.
grease the skids of the economy.
Doesn't have a rubberized membrane.
Correct.
It's not gonna be the
SBS
same.
shingle. So when we suggest to a homeowner, this is the right roof for you, that matters,
Mhm.
right? The hail resistance is a big part of it. Then people are like, well, why do you use all the extra stuff? Why do you use, starter up the rakes? Why do you use icy water up the rakes? Well, guess what? That wind that we
Wind
experienced
and rain like we
just
just had.
correct. Because when it's sideways, I live on a lake, right? So and I can look about 12 miles across my lake. When that water was perfectly horizontal, because the wind was blowing so hard, I mean, all of our big, we had those big composite chairs, I mean, they were blowing around like rag dolls. Like, it was windy. That water's gonna win.
Mhm.
And that's, so if it's wind, it's rain, if it's hail, we have to put a roof on that's gonna stand all three of those. I mean, that's the reality of it.
So, when you talked about going up the rakes, and for those that don't know, the rake of the roof is the slanted part,
Yep, like
right?
the
Where the
gable end.
edge is.
Yep.
Gable, edge. I didn't know what that was before I started roofing.
No.
Yeah, just so we all understand. The way that we do the critical details on that area, it's stacked in a certain way, right? You've got your ice and water, and you've got the underlayment, and the drip edge goes where?
On top.
On top. Why?
So it can pan on top.
Because they know if wind blows and water blows the right way, it will go right in between the shingles and that drip edge.
Right.
But that's okay because it's stacked the right way, it's flashed properly.
Right.
The water will then allow to just be able to run underneath the shingles on top of the underlayment and come out, and all is good. But I guarantee you there are probably hundreds, maybe thousands of people that had roof leaks. Most of them probably don't know it because it's probably just wet in their insulation,
In their attic.
in their attic, in their insulation, which can lead to a whole nother,
Well, just add heat, make it more fun.
group. You had heat, you get mold, all kinds of nasty stuff, but they don't know that it happened.
Right.
And that's, some do and some don't, but that's why it's done that way.
Right.
And, to explain it to a homeowner, yeah, you're going to pay, $3,000-$4,000 more for this roof, but we're going to do these things differently that nobody else is going to do. And it doesn't matter till it matters.
Correct.
And then,
And then you know what sets in? Regret.
yeah,
Sorry.
yeah,
Like, what we see all the time, like, people will run into people like, God, I wish we'd had you do our roof. Like, well, yeah, you wish you do it now. Now that the price is in the obstacle,
yeah.
now you look back in hindsight, it's always 2020,
Yeah.
right? Well, yeah, I wish you'd done it the right way. Sorry.
Do it the right way the first time. I always talk about, I know we're talking about wind, whatever. It's our podcast. We can talk about whatever we want. But I was talking to
This is the time where you're the boss.
talked to
Nice.
never am otherwise. Talked to Carson, one of our new reps yesterday, and he had an appointment for a roof restore. This person had recently purchased the home, been in it a few months, and the building inspector told him that he needed to add more roof ventilation. Well, he told him he needed to add more roof ventilation. The problem is that the damage had already been done. Shingles were baked.
From the inside out.
Correct. And Carson went up there and he did his full inspection. He sent me some photos. Like, you can't necessarily tell granular loss from the ground to the untrained eye. If it's real bad, we can see it because you can start to see fiberglass fibers. You can see them; they get a little shiny.
Some of the tools we use help them.
Now,
guys.
when we get up on the roof and use our tools, you can see it really, really well. But Carson's like, his gutters are full of shingle rock, and he's like, it's fiberglass matting and cracking all over the place. But it looks good from the ground. So he's like, I don't know what to do. And I'm like, well, it's simple. You tell the truth.
The truth.
You just tell him the truth.
Truth will always set you free.
You just tell him the truth. He wanted new ridge vent across his house, and he had quite a bit of it, and his garage. I was like, well, the garage doesn't really make that much difference, right? It doesn't really matter. We put ridge vent on a garage really for aesthetic reasons. Aesthetics. It looks nice. It's not a conditioned space. It doesn't matter. But anyway, he's like, I don't know what to tell him. I said, you tell him the truth. Show him your inspection video and say to him, listen, I could come in here right now, go through this long spiel, and it be $3,000 to replace all the ridge vents on your house, but it won't do any good because your roof is already broken.
It's dead.
It's dead. It's already broken. The damage is done. So why would we replace these right now? Cost you $3,000 when in a couple years you're going to have to tear the whole roof off and pay for it again.
Right.
It's completely pointless. And of course, the homeowner was shocked, but he was very appreciative because he had other people over already. Nobody mentioned that. Nobody did a roof inspection. So I know this homeowner is going to make the right decision, whether he does it now or later, whatever. But why spend the money and then redo it?
Yep.
So just be
It
honest.
goes back to the analogy of always do what's right when no one's looking.
Right.
In the home improvement industry, when profits and revenue are the target, people lost that. That's not what they think about. But when we built these businesses, we put Larson on the name and Keeney on the door and Larson on the door. Do the right thing when no one's watching, and you'll never have to worry about it. I'll never walk into a grocery store or a supper club, just like you won't, and have to hide if I'm wearing my Larson shirt.
Mm-mm.
Because guess what? I know that we'll always try to do what's right for the customer, even if it's not popular, even if it's not the easy answer, because it's the right thing for them.
Right.
They may or may not appreciate it right now. And hopefully they trust us and let's do the work. Then they appreciate it later. The worst thing that could happen is they have regret. They say, God, I wish I would have had you do it last time.
Yeah. And I had a whole point with the Carson thing. Just do the right thing.
Do the right thing.
Did the guy buy anything? No. And I told Carson, let him know. If I sell this to you, the only person that's helping is me and my company. We make money, you lose because you got to redo it again later. My point was when we sell our roofing, we are always trying to sell a class 4 impact rated shingle with all the bells and whistles. And when I mean bells and whistles, these aren't like frivolous bells and whistles. These are important things. This is all the stuff we talked about, the extra ice and water and the starter going up the gables, going up the rakes, the extra ice and water in the valleys. Valleys leak.
Right.
They do. So when we do
We're channeling water there on purpose.
yeah, when we do a valley the right way, like with our full Monty, it's like you're getting like 8 feet of ice and water with steel. That valley can't leak. So at least we give people that option. Not everyone's willing to pay for it, but I have a feeling in a time not too far away, if you want your home to be insured, you're going to have a class 4 impact rated shingle. Why wouldn't they force it?
Here's the analogy. I thought about this last night as this storm was going through. The way we do roofing, the right way, with all those bells and whistles you said, is like buying a car with airbags. Most people will never use that car with airbags. Hopefully never use it. But guess what? When that accident happens, guess what you're lucky to have?
Yeah,
All those airbags that come out.
everywhere.
You don't see them. You don't think about them. You paid for it. You paid for when you bought that car for all that safety equipment. Like there's cars that are cheap that don't have that kind of safety equipment. But guess what? When that accident happens, you're thankful that you had all that safety equipment that you never thought of.
And
It was just
you will have forgotten about the fact that you paid 15% more for that car
right,
or that roof when it matters.
right.
When you have us come out and do a hail inspection and you have no damage, but all your neighbors have to get new roofs.
Yep.
Because guess what? Getting a new roof with insurance is not fun. It's not fun. They're not like, oh, yeah, no problem. Here's 30 grand. No, they're like, here's 12.
Right.
And then we got to
Make you
fight,
fight.
you know,
Right.
put the cheapest crap on that house we can, which is also real. Another cool story. When we do a really good roof, we take lots of photos. We document it really well. We just did a roof in the area last year or 2 years ago. All the good stuff. Guess what the insurance company has to pay for?
All the good stuff.
All the good stuff. There's no arguing.
No?
Here it is, and this is what it cost 2 years ago. So now it costs more.
Right.
Simple.
Right.
But if we don't have that documenting by a company that did it the right way, now you're just left to fight because all they want to pay for is cheap shingles, felt paper,
Mhm.
cheap crap.
Right. And you can't blame the insurance company. Everybody's
No,
trying
I
to
would too.
they're trying to everybody's trying to take the insurance company's money, right? I get it. They got to protect themselves too.
Totally get it.
But if we can do what's right for the customer, and hopefully never in that scenario,
Yeah.
we're saving people a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress, a lot of money, and that's really the goal. Do it right when no one's watching.
Do it right when no one's watching. So getting back to kind of what we talked about with the wind damage, if you look up, you see some missed shingles. If you look up and there's big tree limbs laying on your roof, give us a call, give somebody a call, come out and take a look at it because there could be an issue that is going to be major down the road and you're going to want to know about it. And a lot of that wind stuff, it can be a restore. We don't have to replace the whole
No,
roof.
no,
We can fix parts. If we find if you find certain parts that are lifted, you can hand seal them back down. There's
sometimes,
things
yep,
sometimes you can hand seal them. Sometimes you might have to replace some shingles,
happens, yep,
but you might not replacing the whole roof unless a whole part of it blew off is
right,
usually not going to happen.
right,
So don't look at wind. The first thing that entered my mind when that wind came through yesterday, and it took chairs from my yard that were not light, and it launched them 100 feet. It's like, oh man, there are a lot of shingles lifting right now and blowing off.
right.
So
Those roofs that are 15, 20 years old that are starting to get to the end of their life
yeah,
cycle.
the problem is they're going to lift, do this, and then they're going to do this,
Yep,
and they're never going to seal back down, and they're just going to be flopping.
yep,
That ain't good.
yep.
That wind-driven rain comes through again, it's getting underneath there. So if you think you had damage, don't risk it.
Oh, that's good.
If you can see it, call us. You can usually fix it. Hopefully, avoid the insurance getting involved, which is weird. You used to want to be like, well, I'll just call the insurance. You don't want to do that anymore. It's miserable. They probably drop you. Like,
Hey,
I've heard a lot of horror stories. Hey, your deductible tripled and there's no recoverable depreciation. And by the way, after this claim, you're
you're gone.
dropped. So
Merry
cool.
Christmas. Merry
Thanks for the
Christmas.
relationship. That's awesome. I've paid you $50,000 over the past however many years.
Right.
But so anyway, don't risk it. Have a professional come look at it, whether it's us or somebody else. So
Sounds good.
hey, folks, everybody, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And if you like what you see, check us out on all of our social media platforms. I can't name them off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure it's like all of them. Check it out. And if you have questions, specific questions about remodeling, about building, about home improvement, drop them in the comments. That's how we can build this show and we can answer your questions at the same time. Because again, between the two of us, 45 years of construction experience. And if we don't know the answer, we know somebody who does. So again, thanks for watching.